What's up, ladies and gentlemen? If you are listening to me, I wanted to share yet another level up mind snack with you. Forgive the same outfit. I just went through a very quick video, which was the commencement of my family family vlog, which I'm starting. So I do have a few streams of thought that I am focusing on this channel. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. If you are a continued subscriber, I appreciate you immensely. Hi, Vicky. And I want to thank you so much with a high level of gratitude for sticking with me, whether it's through my Facebook page or here on YouTube. And thank you so much for subscribing and just being here. I just feel like I've had so many things happening in my life that I just really wanted to share some thoughts on a wider um, scale than I could perhaps in my Facebook Level Up Charm School group. So these are the mind snacks, which are, I'm hoping to get briefer and briefer. That's a challenge that I've given myself. And so I'm up for the challenge and I'm working on it, getting brief. But the level up mind snacks are short and sweet concepts that allow us to deeply, nutritionally, and mentally embrace certain concepts that have helped us and many others who are higher or further advanced than ourselves in this process of level up. Hi, sis. Thank you. Um, and so that's what these mind smacks, not mind snacks are, is that they're supposed to be deep, nutritional, mentally loving thoughts. So this one is on empath versus the radical self-love concept. I personally am an empath. Many in my circle have been an empath. We have talked about this for over a decade on social media in my circles in terms of what it means to be an empath. And an empath is a person who is very sensitive to the energies around them. They are very sensitive to the things that the people around them are going through. They are very intuitive in terms of just being able to read an energy, read the aura of a person around them, and then they tend to absorb the energies that are in their sphere, so to speak. And many times empaths suffer from depression. They suffer from great emotional strain and stress because they are taking on the world's problems. Even when not asked to, they tend to be very, very sensitive to the things that are going on around them emotionally or psychically. And so these are people who, before they even hear about the word, what is an empath, they tend to suffer greatly from an emotional standpoint. They're very empathetic. People tend to come to them for advice. And in fact, people tend to, more than advice, people tend to come to them to dump their emotional baggage onto this person because they are so empathetic, they're sympathetic, they are tend to have their guard down, and so people come to them in order to seemingly to relieve themselves, and then leave you as the empath with the baggage. And so we have found that as empaths, we tend to carry many emotional scars. We tend to get into relationships, whether it be friendships or romantic relationships, with people who are damaged, with people who have some challenges and who want to elevate themselves. At least they say that they do. And they use us as a sounding board, as like I said, as a dumping spot for them to, relieve themselves because not many other people in the world care enough to sit and listen to and absorb other people's problems. So you are, as an empath, if you are an empath, if that sounds like you are indeed a very special person, tend to be very loving, tend to be very sensitive, tend to be very forgiving, and tend to be very sympathetic. But what happens is that as you are an empath, you are a person who tends to set aside your own life path, your own life journey, you tend to be in situations where you find that your progress in your life is often delayed, it's deferred in the place of other people's progress. If you are wanting to help those around you, you may tend to place your own needs on the back burner, or you may never get to taking care of your own needs. You may have a martyr syndrome where you're more focused on ensuring that everyone else around you is okay or is healing, and you tend to sap all of your own energies to the point to where you are pouring from an empty cup. um, that is the experience that I've seen from many empaths, and you intend to get into a space where now you're in the same position as those who are using you as a dumping receptacle for their emotional trauma and baggages. So now you need somebody to turn to, and tend to not turn to others because you understand the burdens of what it means to carry other people's problems, of what it means to care about other people's problems. Um, and be so focused on healing them and being there for them that you tend to not want to do that for other people, or to have and receive that for yourself. And so we get to a point as empaths that we have to make some very, very serious choices in our lives that are related to our own mental health and that are related to our own sanity. In other words, we get to the point where, aside from our gifts as empaths, we want things that are better for ourselves. We tend to go through many experiences that are related to the fallout of taking on other people's baggages. We tend to experience very rough patches in our lives, many slowdowns, many dreams deferred. And then we get to a place where we're like, you know what, this is an incredibly unsatisfactory experience for me. This is something that I don't really want to continue experiencing anymore, and I don't want to keep repeating this. But then you have your innate nature, which is very empathetic and which is actually looking for um, people to save, having the savior complex. And so for me, what has helped me, seemingly without effort or without the desire. Well, I have to actually take that back, because I had to have the desire to put my own needs first, and to block, in other words, in a way to put a fence around myself so that I would be more focused on my own growth and my own needs than those around me who are somewhat vampirish in their energies. In other words, they're not coming to me to want aid or elevation so that they can get better, because that is their greatest intent and they are actively working to get better. But these are ones that I'm referring to who are just simply dumping on me and have no intention of getting better, but have the every intention to stay around me and use me as their psychologist for years to come, and never actually do anything to alleviate and elevate their own lives. So once I decided that, you know what, this isn't working for me, I got all this baggage that's not even mine that I'm carrying. I got enough problems on my own, and I'm finding that one issue that really took me into some very, very low states in my own life, emotionally, financially, and otherwise, is because I was taking on other people's burdens. And I thought that through other issues, that I thought that by my being a savior, that that made me a better person, that that was the only way that I could be needed by someone, as opposed to me simply being loved for who I am without having to play psychologist and doctor and be the rescuer of every puppy in the city, every injured puppy and broke puppy in the city. So once I kind of got that idea that there's something's got to change, because this right here isn't working, and this is the last time I'm going to go through this at this age, that's when the concept of radical self-love came into play. And it's an interesting concept in and of itself for anybody, but when you are an empath, it is an incredibly empowering and powerful tool for you to use to create a fence around yourself. If you're thinking that, I don't know if I have the courage to do this, it's not worked before, What will people think if I'm no longer providing that role for them in their lives? Um, how does that interplay with my own sense of self-worth, since I've attached my self-worth to being a psychologist and to being the quote unquote okay person that everybody else comes to fix their issues? Like, a part of that is some ego wrapped up in there that we have, that our sense of self-worth is based on our ability to be the best martyr in town, our ability to be the best listener, our ability to take on everybody else's pains, our ability to be a dartboard for everybody else's daggers. And when you utilize that that radical self-love, it is, it's kind of rough to say it like that, but it's like a healthy crutch to use until you gain that inner strength to say no. A lot of times empaths are not able to say no. But when you're utilizing the techniques of radical self-love, coupled with your understanding that the universal laws are in place, whether you agree with them or not, whether you play with them or not, or whether you utilize them for your benefit or not, they are still at play. So when you make that decision that I know what I don't want. What I don't want is what I keep going through: destitution, emotional strain, drain, depression, weight gain, weight loss, inability to focus, anxiety, all of these aspects that many empaths have. Once you decide that I no longer want that, how can I get better? How can I create a barrier around myself so that I can still function and exist in life without having to step into this role, this codependent role that I'm currently playing with people in my life? And how can I stop attracting these people who seem to always need to be healed? How can I stop attracting that into my life and attract healed, healthy, whole people? Well, we do that by becoming healed, because there's a part of ourselves as an empath that's not healing, that's not at a state where we are able to radically and courageously say self first. An empath is always saying everybody else first. Um, and see, that's another one, going for your peace. So whatever it is that you have determined that you really need in your life to make your life feel more valuable, to feel more worthwhile in your living, because you've finally gotten the message 3 to 4 times around the block that what you have been doing isn't working for you, and you're finally ready for a change, not just in words, but in action and in lifestyle shift. And so by doing that, by becoming radically involved in your own self-love, you understand that, well, since the laws of the universe are working anyway, since I am under these laws in terms of being held accountable to what's already happening in the universe, I may as well use it to my benefit. You don't have to have all of the answers at first. You don't have to always wonder, well, how am I going to do this? Well, if I'm making this shift and then um, Cynthia or Dwayne or whoever comes and starts with this whole thing again about what happened with their day and all of this problems and stress and trauma, how am I going to handle that without being rude? Or, will they reject me? Will they feel that I no longer love them? Will I lose them? Will I lose the friendship or the relationship with them if I protect myself first? And so one of the things that was really important that I heard is that there are two main motivators in this life. There's either love or there's either fear. And you can love people around you without having to fear losing them. In other words, you can still love them even if you've lost them. You can still love them from a distance, but you can also love yourself first. And you have to understand that radical self-love means that you understand that you have the right to love yourself first and foremost, more than anyone else. And if you are not able to pour from a full cup, from a healthy cup, what is the point in trying to save people anyway? And then once you walk through that path, you'll begin to realize it's not your job to ever save people. Right. Um, okay, much love, sis. Thank you for joining me from Kenya. Um, and exactly, pressure and pain. When you want that relief in your life, when you want to actually live your life for yourself, when you want to give yourself the best first, so that you can continue to give the best to others around you when you deem fit and necessary for you, you begin to really embrace that radical self love. You begin to understand that, as I mentioned on my Facebook page, your tribe is those who embrace you in your ever evolving state, in your ever tenacious desire to keep chasing your ultimate you, to keep leveling up into a state where you were not 2 months ago, 1 month ago, last year. But these are people who may understand that though I can't evolve with you to that level because that's not my path, I still love and appreciate you for who you are. That is the truth of real love, real acceptance, and real caring. And that is a real empathic type of demeanor. It's a very empathic type of way of being when you can accept others' path and journey, and that it doesn't have to be yours, and you don't have to ostracize them because they've chosen something different than what they had previously chosen. So you first have to give yourself the ability to say yes and the ability to say no. You have to give yourself choice. You have to understand that they didn't come into this world with you, and they're not going to necessarily go out of this world with you. So at some point, you've got to face yourself. And you got to look at yourself and think about life from a finite point of view, even though we understand those who are spiritually connected to some of the systems that I personally am affiliated and aligned with, that we are infinite beings, we are infinite souls, but within this finite experience called this lifetime, with your name and your family construct and everything that you designed prior to coming in, it's finite. But you had some set goals. You had some specific things that you wanted to encounter, that you wanted to overcome, that you wanted to really embrace so that you could get yourself to another level, a next level that your higher self wanted to experience. But if you get mired in the muck of other people's paths and other people's lives and their problems, you tend to miss the boat of your own. So having the courage to radically shift your thinking and your thoughts from others to yourself, to radically place yourself first, which is an totally foreign idea for many of us empaths who are always putting others first, who value and acknowledge the worth of others before we value and acknowledge the worth in ourselves. And so, in doing that, that is your key lesson. That is the radical shift in your thinking, is how do I shut down the outside world while I mend these fences around my inner world? How do I mend my fences and my defenses so that I can then create within my own space and protect the sanctity of my own space without allowing the encroachment of others who seek to um, extract my energy and detract or derail my attention from me onto themselves. So empaths tend to attract narcissists quite a bit because they understand that it's the opposites. And so if you are attracting narcissists, you're going to have an energy level and an auric residue around you, which makes you understand that you've got to really cleanse yourself spiritually, aurically, and then you've got to understand that if you want to utilize these laws that are already in place for your benefit, so that you can benefit and be more helpful to more people than these narcissists that you've been dealing with, you've got to learn some defense mechanisms. You've got to build a healthy fence around yourself, and you've got to get comfortable with saying no. You've got to get comfortable with saying me first. You've got to be comfortable with being all about yourself. And so here is a word that a lot of empaths may shudder at, or may just be like, "Oh my God, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not familiar with that." But one thing that I realized that I was becoming maybe halfway through my path over the last couple of years is that I was finally becoming self centered. Now, in this society, we tend to think that being self centered is a very negative, it's a very selfish way to be. We tend to think of narcissists as self centered. But what I learned to do so that I could reinforce the fence around myself, not to keep out the good things, but to allow me to have the strength to repel the things that I know good and well that are not good for me and that are not seeking my highest good along with their own highest good. So that's what that fence is for. And when I began to rephrase and reframe self centered into centered in self. So you have self centered, and eventually, with practice and with growth, it becomes centered in self. So when you are centered in self, you do put yourself first, and you understand that if you do not, if you drain yourself, if your adrenals are shot, your glands are, to hell and back, and you are drained energetically, you're not resting, you're emotionally and physically, if not emotionally, battered, you get to the point where you understand you're not able to even be the full empath that you wanted to be. Right now, you are just broken down and abused. And some of that is first self abuse when you don't acknowledge your self worth. So when you are centered in self, which is the flip side of self-centered, it means that you have called in your forces. You have recalled your forces out from in the world that is out here helping and seeking out who else can you save, but you've recalled them in order to save yourself first. And you are pulling that energy back into you. And there are rituals that can be done for that. There are cleansing baths that can be done for that as well, and there are mental affirmations and listening to binaural beats that can also help you with that. But calling in your forces and returning your troops to yourself so that you are replenishing yourself, so that you are feeling empowered within yourself rather than giving your power away to others and your soldiers away to others to empower them. First, you must healthily and cleanly empower yourself. So calling those back into yourself and distancing yourself if it's required from those who are not healthy, from those narcissists in your life, from those family members, even if it's a parent or a close sibling, but you know good and well they are not healthy for you, and that they are going to drain and strain your energies that you absolutely must utilize for yourself right now. If that's required, then you do it. That's the radical part of it. That's the radical part of your self love that says, if I do not fix myself now, if I'm, knock on wood, heaven forbid, but car accident tomorrow, what will I be able to say about my life when I review my life and what I gave my energy to and who I gave myself away to? How will you answer to yourself first and foremost? Because when we think about the eternal source, when we think about the infinite being, the God, the goddess, whatever you want to call that, we call that ourselves first. It's within ourselves first. So when you go through that so-called judgment day, however you want to call it, through whichever spiritual practice that you're in, it's first and foremost, you got to answer to your soul. And if your soul is a part of the eternal source, then you are one and the same. And I certainly know what it feels like to have disappointed myself in my life. I certainly know what it feels like to have fallen off and, having to spend a lot of energy, time, and effort to get back up on the horse. I know what that feels like. So imagine what that feels like multiplied by whatever at the end of your life, this span, and you got to review the choices that you've made. So this is why you get radical about it and you say, I'm not going to wait till somebody's funeral for me to have this big epiphany. I'm not waiting until life-threatening situation or maybe a scare with a health issue, like maybe you falsely diagnosed with cancer, or maybe a close friend all of a sudden pops up with cancer. I've had friends who've had friends, friends of friends who've had diagnosis out of nowhere. They seem healthy, and all of a sudden they got 3 months to live. Imagine if that was yourself. All of a sudden, Your choices would be quite different if you realized that you only had this amount of time to live. So there have been times in my life where I've literally visualized that, not that I've brought that to myself, but I have utilized the energy of urgency. I've utilized that energy that I don't have time to keep playing around. I've looked at my age, being 47 right now. I'm not 20. I don't have time to keep going around the merry-go-round 50 more times, with some mess, and having to pay for it, because each time I go around, the lesson gets worse and worse. And I certainly experienced the last of the worst. I was not doing that anymore. That's where the radicalness came from for me personally. Everybody else has things that are triggers for them. But you want to consider that, whatever it is required for you to get real about the radicalness of calling your forces into yourself and building that heavy, healthy fence, and defense mechanism around yourself, so that you become, centered in self, so that you become so about you. You become so about your healing. You become so about discovering the new level of you. Because every time we elevate, every time we get a new understanding, a new insight, and we institute new practices in our lives, we become a new person. I am no longer the person I was yesterday. I'm no longer the person I was on my birthday, last week. I'm not the person I was last year. Every day is an opportunity for you to be a new person and to rediscover the best of yourself. And so, as you are becoming centered in self, you become fascinated with the process of discovering your new you, discovering a new courageous aspect of yourself, of seeing yourself saying, you know what, I'm not going to answer that phone call because I know she's about to call me and go through this long litany that she's gone through the day before and the day before and last weekend and last year. She's still with the same man. She's still got the same issues, or she's still not handling her business on X, Y, and Z. No, I'm not going to answer the phone. You get this email from somebody, or somebody's being, extra at the office, and that's how they are. Am I going to engage them, or am I going to focus on the things that I want, which is definitely not to be in their presence or to allow them to dump on me? And I used to always wonder, well, okay, well, I see I want to go in this direction, but what do I say to people when let's say I can't, avoid the phone call, or I run into them in person. Like, what do I say? How do I handle that? Because I was so not used to being centered in self. I was so not used to putting myself first that I literally would sit and wonder, well, what do I say if they ask me this, or if they say, do you have a minute? Or, if they're trying to be a little bit stank, a little bit of shade in the office or wherever it might be, how do I handle this? And I would literally be asking myself that. And then I got to the point, after I began to have small victories, after I began to have the courage to just simply say, you know what, now is not a good time. Let's talk another time. And I just came up with that, and then that worked for me. They backed off, and if they said, no, but it's just going to be, I'm seriously, I am going through, some changes right now. I'm going through some cleansing, and right now I really can't handle this. So, it's going to have to be another time. I'm sorry about that. Love you still, but I just can't do this. And that was it. Walk away. I mean, you don't owe anybody an explanation. You don't owe anybody your life. You don't owe anybody your energy and your time, not even your children. As radical as that sounds, if you are not in a space where you can healthily engage with them, it is your right to back off and have them back off, or anybody in your life. It is your right. And so once I began to have these small victories, it built my self confidence. And they say that we build self trust and self confidence by keeping our word to ourselves. That is an excellent way to build your self confidence. So let's say you want to really do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to take 10 steps to get there. Well, if you set your plan and you discipline yourself, and then you create tools around each step that will help you to get there and allow you to overcome obstacles in your path. If you already know that there's going to be bad days, so I need to keep my playlist of my most inspirational speakers. I know that I need to have some signs up that says, don't focus on this, focus on the good, focus on what's right in your life. Whatever it is, you set that in advance, and then you start your progress up the ladder. And as you do that, as you experience yourself treating yourself well, putting yourself first, that builds your self-confidence. That builds the armor in your fence around yourself. That's what allows you to keep calling in your forces, calling in this army and that army and every army that you've sent all over the world to help everybody else but you begin calling them in. That is your strength that you pull back to yourself. Then little by little you begin to realize, I'm awesome. I'm I'm freaking awesome. Like I am able to do this. Like it wasn't even 2 weeks ago where I just would have said, well, she'd be upset if I don't answer this call. Well, let me just go on and get this call because she's just gonna keep calling me if I don't. Well, and you're doing all of this stuff which is putting yourself last. But as you begin to experience yourself, and not in an angry or unhelpful way, but simply put your foot down and place that and understand that anybody who is for you will not leave you in this process. If they really weren't for you, have the strength to have them to show you who they really are. Have the strength to listen to them tell you who they really are and what they really think about you. Because if you say, I'm in need right now, I don't need to dump on you, but I do need to call in my forces and just lift myself up and strengthen myself right now. So in this state, I'm not really able to do more right now. If you're telling them that and they start dumping on you, oh, so it's like that. Oh, so you're not my friend anymore. Oh, I thought we were down. I thought we were cool. Like what happened? You've changed a lot. Oh, so why are you so selfish all of a sudden? That's not friendship. I mean, if you were really my friend, if you were really down for me, and going through this whole unhealthy, dysfunctional litany of mess that they want to spew on you to guilt you into being a doormat and a dumping receptacle for whatever they want to dump in your face and in your heart. And so understand and hear that for what it is. And as you step up that ladder, as you call your forces in, as you have these little small victories, as you put yourself first, the beginning of the day, don't jump up and start running with the clock. Beginning of the day, don't to open your phone, don't turn it on for 30 minutes at least. Resist the urge, because whatever's on your phone requires action. It requires a response. Put yourself first. Don't look at your phone. Put it in another room to charge. And then do 5 minutes of stretching. Do 5 minutes of breathing. Listen to your favorite whoever, Reverend Ike, Les Brown, Lee Brown, whatever the brother's name is, Miss Pravala. There's like a plethora, Oprah, whoever. Put them on while you're in the shower. Put the speakers on in your room. Get dressed. Put on your favorite gospel music. Put on whatever it is that you know that makes you feel good, and good and well you enjoy it when you remember to utilize and engage with it. Put that on first thing in the morning. Write down your goals for the day. 3 short things that you definitely want to be sure that you do. Remember to praise the Lord. Remember to say your mantras. Listen to something on the way to work. That could be your 3. Oh, remember to take your vitamins. Remember to, let me just take 2 minutes and make the smoothie right quick. I've been saying I wanted to get on green smoothies. Or if it's just that, let me make my grocery list so that I can finally remember after work to go to the store and get these spinach, get these greens, and let me just do this. Let me just make sure no matter what I do this on my lunch break, no matter what it is, I'm going to do this for myself. You will see that night when you lay down or get ready to lay down, pull out your gratitude journal or just review your day. Again, give yourself that time. You will see, you know what, I did do that. I've been trying to do that for like 3 months now. I've been trying to get on smoothie diet. I've been putting it off. Or I've been trying to stretch and I just been, trying a couple of yogas. They got Billy Blanks. I used to love him back in the day. The boot camp on YouTube. You don't have to go to a gym to pay all this if you don't have it. YouTube, you got your computer. If you're going to touch your phone, it's not to go on your messages and Facebook and all of that. It's to turn on YouTube if you don't have a laptop or whatever near you. Turn that on. He's got 10-minute ab workout. He has 10-minute cardio. He has, for beginners on up, literally 10 minutes. There's 8-minute workouts. Anything to get you at a state where you can accomplish something that was for you only. It wasn't for the kids. It wasn't for your husband. It wasn't for your girlfriend. It wasn't for whoever, but it was for you. And you did it for yourself and you accomplished it. When you get to the end of the day, you're going to say, yes, I did something for myself. That's what builds your self-confidence. That adds another nail in that fence around you. And that's when you can say, I want more of this. This is what that feels like. This is what being centered in self feels like. Let me get a little bit more on that. Next day you wake up, add something else. Whatever that feels good, experience. I mean, walk around the playground of your creativity and your imagination and realize I was able to do that for myself and it felt good. Like my whole day, like my energy shifted. I was able to protect myself more just in terms of, just if I felt that good doing this for myself, I want more of this. Become addicted to that, become obsessed with that. Do not worry about being selfish because you need to be selfish in order to be centered in yourself because you got to get these people off your back, get these energies off of you. At night, you can always inbox me for spiritual baths that allow you to release energies from, your crown, from your head area, and, release that energy from your auric field. You will feel so much lighter and dress in white when you go to bed, and wrap your head in white and say a few prayers. And you'll see the difference. All of a sudden, it's a progress. It's something that's for you. So anyway, I just wanted to share that there comes a time when you have to stop allowing yourself to walk down this route that says, I'm an empath and everybody dumps on me and that's just the way it is. And, I have a hard time. You have to make some choices in your life, and that will require some very, very radical routines, rituals, and choices in your life. But once you do that, you'll realize that the quality of your help to other people is elevated. Whereas you were dragging at your lowest, and being an empath and helping any and everybody who half of them didn't even really want help, they just want to dump. But when you begin to experience a higher quality within yourself, the things that you were able to do for others and for a larger number of people is of a much higher quality because as you nourish them, you are nourishing yourself because you're doing it from a healthy space as opposed to an unhealthy space where I'm allowed to allow people to dump on me and I'm not supposed to ever get filled myself. I'm not supposed to do it from a healthy place. And I'm not even allowing people to dump on me anymore from a healthy place. I don't allow it anymore. Even if I'm listening to a person's problem, there are some techniques that you can use as you are being empathetic and sympathetic without allowing that to take over your aura and your life. And there are certain things you can do to relieve and elevate it if it was a little bit heavier than you expected. And that's when you are again engaging from a healthy space. But take a break, back off, back off from life and obligations. The world is not going to fall apart if you back away from obligations and get yourself into a healed space. But you got to want it, you got to desire it like nothing else, because if you are like me, it takes quite a bit of courage um, to don that new coat, to be the new version of yourself, and to not worry about what people think. It requires a level of courage that you might not have ever had to pull up and out of yourself, but you can do it. It is so much more fulfilling to live that way. And I encourage you every day to do everything you can to be centered in self, or self-centered as other people may call it, and not worry about how people view it. Worry about yourself, worry about you first. So peace and blessings, everyone. I'm going to have a couple of more mind snacks coming up. I got a lot on my mind. Plus, I got the vlog going on. I got wedding preparations and so much going on in my life. So I'm going to be sharing a lot. So I appreciate y'all on the journey. Definitely hit that subscribe if you haven't yet. If you know of an empath who is struggling and doesn't know how to say no, or why she or he should say no, and how that can help them to be a better empath in the future, definitely share this with them. I appreciate you. Peace and blessings.